Deputy Campaign Manager for the governing NPP, Mustafa Hamid, is challenging claims by the opposition NDC that the erstwhile John Mahama administration solved the prolonged power crisis before it exited power. The crisis, which lasted almost 4 years and resulted in the collapse of many businesses, is believed to be one of the reasons why the NDC lost the 2016 elections. Dr. Hamid, at a news conference Monday afternoon, said Ghanaians have forgotten that dreaded era of the John Mahama administration.
The Akan people say that atiye ema arefie, unquote. To wit, comfort engenders forgetfulness. We have taken the new comfort for granted and have forgotten that it has not always been like this. It has taken the vision and conviction of President Akufo-Addo to restore the dignity and sanity of our country and its people. So soon, people have forgotten that for 3 years, we slept in darkness. For 3 years, businesses in this country had collapsed because of Dumso. Indeed, Dumso cost this country billions of cedis, according to ISE's report. It was not for lack of capacity, as all parties in this country agree. It was simply because the economy was in such poor state that the NDC government could not raise the money required to keep the lights on. When we make the argument today, they tell us that they resolved Dumso before they exited. Here are the statistics of how many hours the lights were off in 2015, 2016, and 2017. So you will see who eradicated Dumso. In 2015, there were 800, mind you, 868 hours, 44 minutes of power outage. 886 hours, 44 minutes of power outages. In 2016, there were 320 hours and 27 minutes of power outages. In 2017, there were 41 hours and 7 minutes of power outages, and then it pans out. So it cannot be the case, it cannot be true that under the NDC, Dumso was resolved.
Dr. Hamid also explained how the administration has turned around the fortunes of the country in the agri sector by moving it from a net importer of food to a net exporter.
It bears remembering that this MPP government came into office at a time when another government had thrown its hands in despair and ran to the IMF for a bailout and for what it called, quote, policy credibility, unquote. Now, the first task of any government should be to establish credibility in itself and in its ability to manage the affairs of the country. It is a massive dent on the sovereignty of our country if its government looks for credibility from external sources. Credibility is innate, it is not external. Even at the individual level, you are the only one who can establish your own credibility. Credibility is not bestowed. And so for our country between 2015 and 2016 to have run to external sources to give us credibility was a huge dent on our sovereignty and, as the Akan will say, on our dishia status. That's what the Dagbon people call bleachincy, self-worth. It's important. We call on Ghanaians in this 2020 election cycle to choose credibility over a lack of credibility. Indeed, this country had so lost its sense of credibility that it had to import plantain from Côte d'Ivoire to feed its people. It is the responsibility of governments to create the enabling environment for farmers to work to feed a nation. The visionary and far-sighted leadership of Akufo-Addo through the Planting for Food and Jobs program has turned Ghana around from a net importer of food to a net exporter of food.
On the Dagbon chieftaincy conflict, the deputy campaign manager for the NPP said it has taken thoughtful leadership under President Akufo-Addo to resolve a conflict that has existed since independence.
Through the instrumentality of Akufo-Addo, the wisdom of the eminent chiefs, and the willingness of the people of Dagbon, today, a chieftaincy dispute that spanned several decades and outlived precedents from Nkrumah to date has been resolved. Mind you, the Dagbon crisis does not date from 2002. It is a crisis that Dr. Kwame Nkrumah dealt with and couldn't resolve. It is a crisis that the NLC regime dealt with and couldn't resolve. It is a crisis that Professor Buzia dealt with and didn't resolve. It is a crisis that I.K. Champong dealt with and couldn't resolve. It is a crisis that I.K. Champong is SMC 1. It is a crisis that SMC 2 dealt with under General Ekufu and didn't resolve. It is a crisis that AFRC dealt with. It is a crisis that PNDC dealt with. It is a crisis that PNP dealt with. It is a crisis that escalated under President Kufuor. And through his wisdom, he established the Tree Community of Eminent Chiefs. At that time, our opponents said that if they came to power, they were going to find and jail people for what happened in Dagbon. So instead of working towards the peace and unity of the Dagbon people, they sought more to divide the people of Dagbon and make this a political matter. In other words, politicizing the Dagbon matter